Hey everyone, I know it's been quite a while since I demonstrated MFEKglif, and I'm sorry if there's any background noise in this video, but I will try to keep that to a minimum in post. I have worked on this for, I believe, quite a few months without doing another demonstration. So I may as well just show everything new with it. First of all, since the last time I demonstrated this, there were no guidelines at all, or if there were, they were not working correctly. This actually represents a major change in this application because it's the first time that there is something I can show that users can easily understand that shows how this software is modular. So let me open something else to demonstrate what I mean by that. If I open two glyphs on the screen here, right, we will have two instances of this program running. And normally what you would expect to happen is they would each have their own idea of memory regarding the font's metadata. So you would think if I go to guidelines here, this whole tool is new since I last demonstrated. And if I were to go to, for example, unnamed 2, and if I were to give that a name, in this case that would be pi join. And if I were to save that, so you click this one to write the guidelines out to the font, you can see that it immediately updates in both. How it does that is both of these processes are constantly reading from the kernel, and every time the kernel writes to a special interface that says that there was a change to a certain file, both of these processes reread that file to make sure that they have the latest version. You can see that that also applies to the ascender and the descender height. So if I were to move the ascender like this, I don't know that I necessarily want to do that though before I know what it is before, right? 650, so I can put it back. But if I move the ascender like this and then write it, you can see the ascender moves here as well. And then if I put it back to, where it should be in this font, write it again, it moves once again. That's because the UFO format is just a text format, and I have a text editor open in the background, which I will be able to show really fast here. But let me just give this one a name. And I will write that as well. Okay. So if I go into the text editor here, we can see that I had it open to fontinfo.plist before, and now it's letting me know that the file got overwritten. So if I press L to load it, you can see that we now have low join and high join, which are in here. But because MFEK is supposed to be modular software, you're supposed to be able to update your fonts in the command line and have that take effect in the graphical programs as well. So let's say a command line program were to change this, right? If it were to change the name of that guideline to be capital low instead, you can see that when I write that in Vi here, or how do you pronounce that? Vim, maybe? I have never had to say that out loud. But when I write that here, you can see that it'll immediately take effect in this program. So it really is not any special part of MFEK that is doing any kind of IPC between only our processes. Any process on the system, even ones that we don't know about, can affect this. So, yeah. Another thing that I will show is how I have worked on these glyphs here. So these are already stroked, So when I'm editing them, I can actually see what it will look like in the final font. But when I save it, I'm only getting this actual outline, so I can write it a whole bunch of times. Oh, and while I'm here, I may as well try to explain how I intended uh, the select tool and the pen tool to work, because I did receive a question about it, and I think I'm going to change it because I do think it confuses users, but let me at least try to explain at least my intention. So, normally in a font editing program, you would move this point, and that other point would move to go with it. That would be called smoothing, or smooth in these programs. However, I intended that you would actually press down Control to get that same thing to happen. So otherwise, they would just move separately. Uh, users really did not appreciate that, as I'm getting to find out. So I will be changing it, don't worry. But yeah, that's how I intended it. Another thing is, I was asked how you're supposed to, like, why all this point data is here. Well, it might be because I started working on this cursive font as my first font, which tends to be very, very measurement heavy. And so I'm constantly having to refer to these measurements and use them. So I'm actually, in more than I'm moving these points, I'm changing the measurements here. So that's why this point dialog is so overbearing. Some users saw it that way. And it means that the point dialog is really the only way. For example, here we can see that we have a corner that doesn't have any off-curve point. So the only way to add one, actually, is to where you see bx, by, b radius, b theta. You would go to one of these, and you would actually put a number there. Then you would get your off-curve point that you can move. So I hope that answers Simon's question as to what I intended you to do. Obviously, I think what I'm going to do instead, because I agree, that's quite hard for users to figure out, right? Yeah, my program is the only one that does it that way. I understand that. So, probably I will just copy the same Inkscape idea of, if you click here and you drag, if you click a point along the curve and then you drag, something like that, right? You'll get an off-curve point that will kind of grow out of that location. I don't mind doing that. Yeah, but that is, I believe, all I have to show. Thanks for watching. I am very pleased with how this program is coming along, all things considered. I feel that it's so close. Well, I feel that it's like 80-85% close to done, which makes me pretty happy because I'm pretty ready to move on to other parts of this project. I would like to start working on the font overview. Like, this is just the glyph editor part. And, even though it's a very important part, you can't really have a font editor without a glyph editor, right? It's essential. But I would very much like to move on, and hopefully I have moved us far enough that I can do that pretty shortly here. Everything works, so, knock on wood. Yeah, okay, thank you.